Welcome back, friends, to History with Tim Reacts. So usually what we do on Sundays is Sabaton reactions. But this week they released another clip from the Napoleon movie. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to watch that clip. I'm going to break it down. So what it is it's actually a clip from the Battle of Austerlitz scene. Now, there's been a lot of controversy so far because of certain historians kind of gunning, I guess you could say, at Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott also had a pretty blunt response to all of it. I'm just going to put out my opinions on that real quick. History's history and movies are movies. Movies are meant to be entertaining. Ridley Scott's making a movie about the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. That's just in his prime is 30 years worth of events. So if he's shoving some things into a short, into condensed things, I'm going to point out one of them when we're reviewing this video because I did watch it already. But that's understandable for historians to be upset. I get it. I did a reaction to the Gettysburg movie, a review of it. And, I pointed out the inaccuracies and I pointed out the accuracies. But at the end of the day, that's entertainment. We're supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to watch it because we are interested in the subject, but also it's to make us look into it ourselves. I've been reading Napoleon's memoirs. I've been reading books about him, books about his campaigns, books about the people he fought, like Gerhard von Blücher or Arthur Wellesley or Bennigsen or Kutuzov or even Alexander I. It's entertainment is to entertain, but also historical entertainment is to make us look at it and say, maybe I want to learn. And then you can go back and be like, oh, well, I like this in the movie, but maybe what actually happened was a little cooler. Or maybe, I think they did it better in the movie, even though this is really what happened. A perfect example would be the play Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton was not Latino. I know people try to say, oh, well, he was from Jamaica, he was from the Caribbean. He was the bastard son of a landowner and a Scottish woman of the night, so to speak. So he was a white guy. George Washington. Love the guy that plays him. One of my favorite roles in the play. George Washington was not black. But we can enjoy the musical for what it is. It's fun. And now it makes us say, hey, I do want to learn about these people. And that's the same thing here. And you know what? So far, so good. The movie does not look that inaccurate. Of course, they're going to be taking some artistic calls. Like, they're going to make a little artistic switches here and there. But that's just how it is. And we need to understand that as a community. And honestly, we need to enjoy it because God knows they never make movies like this anymore. So, with all that said, welcome to the channel. My name is Tim. This is our channel. We talk about history, we review movies, original content. We have original content. We do music reviews as well as gameplays. I've been doing the battles of Napoleon lately. The Battle of the Pyramids will be premiering tomorrow, and the Battle of Austerlitz will be premiering on Friday. Now, with all that said, let's get into it. Like I said before, this is a clip from the Battle of Austerlitz in the Napoleon movie. Now, what we're going to be watching is an infamous moment. This is the Sachin frozen pond incident on the southern right flank of Napoleon on December 2nd, 1805 at the Battle of Austerlitz. Now, this is, I'm guessing one of these individuals here is supposed to be Davout. I found out recently that gentleman who I thought was supposed to be Davout with the mustache is actually supposed to be Michel Ney. The actor, I think, is perfect to play Ney. I don't know where the mentality of him having facial hair comes from. As far as I know, Ney, with maybe the exception during the Russian campaign, most definitely did not have facial hair. But this is Davout. Now, what you're seeing here, obviously, they've made it look a little more, so to speak, militaristic, like this was planned. Pretty much the French arrived to Austerlitz on the 1st, and so did the Russians, and the French set up first. There were not really these artillery positions and things set up. But so far, so good. This is the small town that Napoleon used as a diversionary position. Um, Another fun fact about this, which you should go over to History Hits, which I'll put a link to this video. History Hits actually sat down with Ridley Scott and discussed things. This field is actually the same field from the Gladiator movie, the opening battle scene in Gladiator. So, with all of that said, let's start. Now, here comes the Allied force, is what we're going to call it. In reality, it was the Russians. But let's call it Allied for now. Let's get into it.
Wait. Let them think they have the higher ground.
All right. So let's start with this. There was Russian infantry and Russian cavalry that made this assault. This is showing us Austrians and Russian. These are actually Russian hussars. They're wearing their teal uniforms, and these are Austrian cavalry. So that's a little bit of a small inaccuracy, but at the same time, again, you're showing the Battle of Austerlitz. It was not just the Russians at Austerlitz, it was the Austrians. It was, in fact, the battle that ended the Holy Roman Empire, which had existed since the time of Charlemagne. So, again, I understand why Ridley Scott made that artistic decision to have the Austrians involved, and I'm not really against it. I'm trying to get a good frame. Sorry for that. Okay, this is going to be a good one. Okay, so this is something I've seen people complaining about, especially with this video. They're talking about how a lot of the French soldiers are wearing tricorn hats instead of shakos. That actually is not unrealistic. That was actually very common. This wasn't like the Union Army or the British Army or anything where, you know, you're requisitioned specific gear and things. A lot of time, you were given your tunic, your trousers, and your gaiters and boots. Your headwear you purchased, and a lot of time the cheapest option was the tricorn hat. That's the hat that Napoleon wears. You know, you do see there are some men here wearing shakos, but it was very common for, especially in early stages of the empire, to see men wearing tricorn hats along with the shakos. I don't know, I keep saying shako. Yeah, so this is a perfect example. I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be Old Guard. The Grenadiers of the Old Guard. It's interesting this man doesn't have a plate on his helmet, his hat, but whatever. But you see the difference in uniforms. This is a regular infantryman. You have the Old Guard here in tunics. He might just be a Grenadier, and that's why he's not wearing the overcoat. But he's wearing the chevrons of the Guard, so I don't know about that. But this was true. Napoleon, what he did was he faked out the Russians, well, again, the Allies. He made it seem his position was far weaker than it really was. And then in the last minute, he rushed troops in and caught them by surprise. This happened up and down the front. And it's showing the Sachsen frozen pond incident right now. But this happened the Plateau of Pratzen and all other places like that as well. There's one thing on this channel I will always do, is admit when I was wrong. Last time I did a review of the trailer, I thought that this clip was the Battle of Eloa, of Joachim Murat's charge at Eloa. Clearly it is not. It is part of the flanking maneuvers done at Austerlitz, which, in my defense, I did say it was possible that it was that. All I said was there was no grand cavalry charge, but obviously this really isn't grand, it's just the way it's set up. But this is what happened at Austerlitz, pretty much while the infantry was fighting, the cavalry outflanked, spooked the Allied forces, but it spooked them enough that more French soldiers were able to get around. Obviously here was a little different because Napoleon had the plan with the Sachsen frozen pond. but at the plateau of Pratzen, Soult led his corps around the Russians and outflanked them, and it's pretty much part of how they won on the northern front of the battlefield. So right here is where you get to see what I mean by Allied forces. So right here you have a Austrian grenadier. These are Russians. You can tell by their uniforms, the dark greens, and even this one right here is Russian Imperial Guard. So they would have been at the Sachren frozen pond along with the Russian cavalry. It is true. What happened was they did not realize it was not a, it wasn't a plain. It was a frozen pond. So when they started retreating across it, it was too late to turn back. What's kind of ironic about this, too, is in Russia, a few years after the Napoleonic Wars that had ended, there was something called the Decembrists uprising. It was when members of the Russian Imperial Guard rose up in opposition to Tsar Alexander's chosen successor. Ironically, when the army was brought in to put down the rising, the Russian Imperial Guard fled across a river in St. Petersburg, and the Russian, I believe it was Grand Prince Constantine, who actually led the cavalry at Austerlitz for the Russians. He actually ordered them to fire on the on the river, the same way the French had fired on the river at Austerlitz. So I'll be honest. I don't. The one thing I am a little opposed to. I don't think Napoleon was very much like that. And again, I get he's doing it, and that's Joaquin Phoenix's interpretation of what happened and everything. But it was. He wasn't like a baseball coach yelling out directions back and forth. Napoleon was a very stoic commander. He was prone, obviously, to blowing up and things like that, but that when you're in that kind of power and also that kind of person, that will happen. But he wasn't like barking like, "Oh, you gotta do this, go do this, go." He would have his marshals with him and his commanders, and he would be like, "Davout, direct your troops this way," and Davout would send out adjutants who would give orders to the generals, who would give orders to their colonels to move forward. Or to Murat, the famous Elwa incident, he turned to Murat and said, "Are you going to do anything about this?" And that's what prompted the cavalry charge. Napoleon, which again, that's Joaquin's impression. That's what he thinks Napoleon would have been like, which is understandable. But I'm just stating from what I've understood through not only his readings, but readings of other people who knew him, like the Count de Kunacourt, who was a very close ally, who was actually at Austerlitz as well. But this was true. He did this. Another interesting thing was a lot of the Russians who were saved were actually saved by French soldiers. The French, once the battle had ended, had gone forward with ropes and things and were trying to recover a lot of the wounded and dying men in the water who were almost drowning. Because, here we see a cavalryman who went into the water carrying the flag of the Habsburgs, but you had men in full marching gear. Some Austrian units had just gotten there that day. Same thing with the Russians. So you have the situation that all these poor guys are in their full equipment, and then this happens and they're getting pulled down. It's kind of like on D-Day when you had the soldiers jumping off the side of the landing crafts to get away from the bullets, but then they were being drowned by their own gear. So that's a very interesting fact, though, that the French did go to try to help them. But yeah, this was a clip from the movie. So far, again, not disappointing whatsoever. Alrighty, friends. Well, so that's the clip from the Napoleon movie for the Battle of Austerlitz. Now, I'm going to assume it's probably going to show more than just the Battle of Sachsen Frozen Pond. They'll probably show the Plateau of Pratzen, the opening, him discussing with his marshals what's going to happen. I'm a little curious what they're going to do with this Marshal Ney situation, though, because I have been seeing a lot of pictures from the, promotions, and I see the man playing Ney in a lot of the pictures. Ney was not at Austerlitz. I kind of hope they don't have him there because he kind of was in Italy when Austerlitz took place to cut off Prince Charles from helping the Austrian and Russian army at Austerlitz. But so far, movie looks fantastic. We know they're going to be showing Toulon. We know they're going to be showing Austerlitz, the pyramids, 13th of Vendémiaire, Waterloo. There's a lot of the battles that took place between all those. So we gotta 2 more weeks. Believe me, I am counting it down myself. I'm very excited for this movie to come out. And, me and all my friends down here are going to go see it. For my birthday is a little special fun time for me. I'm very excited. I hope you all are too. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sorry, I'm out of it. I had a long day. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you guys enjoy. If you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe. If you're returning and not yet subscribed, please, please, please subscribe. Please like, share, and comment. Continue the conversations. And I will be responding to the comments. I apologize. I've been very busy and I've been very sick. And now I'm doing this No Shave November thing, and it's driving me nuts because I don't go full beard usually. I usually just do a mustache. So bear with me. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.